Hello there. The British government is fighting internal political chaos. In its defense policy, it follows a clearer line than here in Germany. But why is that? Britain has reiterated abiding support for the leadership in Kiev following Russian criticism of tank sales to Ukraine. The message to Russian President Vladimir Putin is that we have made a commitment to support the Ukrainians until they are victorious. That's what British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly said during a visit to Washington on Tuesday. Putin should understand that we will have the strategic staying power to stand by their side, the Ukrainian side, until the job is done, is what Cleverly said at the Center for Strategic and International Studies think tank. The best thing he can do to save his soldiers' lives is to realize that, Cleverly said. Britain was the first country to pledge to deliver Western-made heavy battle tanks to Ukraine over the weekend. 14 British Challenger 2 tanks are to be delivered. I reported on that. Foreign Minister Cleverly said on Tuesday that Ukraine must be able to push back hard on Russian troops in the south and in the east of their own country. France wants to supply light tanks to Ukraine, and Poland has signaled its willingness to supply Ukraine with German-made Leopard tanks. For delivery of the Leopard main battle tank, however, approval from Germany as the country of manufacture is required. Moscow has repeatedly condemned Western arms sales to Ukraine. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov warned on Monday that Western tanks would burn. The British government is, as I said, fighting internal political chaos, and this is one thing where they do something right. And Ben Wallace, the defense minister, had a simple message for our German government. I know there have been concerns in German politics that they don't want to go it alone. Well, they are not alone. That's what the British Defense Secretary told Parliament on Monday. And as I said, the British government had previously announced that their 14 Challenger 2 main battle tanks would be delivered to Ukraine in the future. And it still is the first Western-style battle tanks to roll through Ukraine in the future. Germany should now allow other countries to also deliver Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine, Wallace said. Finland and Poland are apparently willing to do this, but as I already mentioned, need permission from the manufacturing country Germany. All of this currently depends on the decision of the federal government, not just whether the Germans will supply their own Leopard tanks, but whether they will give permission to others or not. I would urge my German colleagues to do it, Wallace said. With their decision, Wallace and the British government have once again increased the pressure on Germany. It's just stupid that he couldn't push any German colleagues at the time because his German colleague Christine Lambrecht resigned on Monday. I'll talk about this a little bit more today on my video on the magazine channel. It's the German magazine. In a way, the British are showing Germany the way. Despite the consequence of Brexit, inflation, strikes, and several changes at 10 Downing Street, London manages to assume a leading role in the Ukraine war. Also because Ben Wallace is one of the few in the Ministry of Defense as a constant. Ukraine policy is the only thing that is working in the British government right now. That's how political scientist Ed Turner from Aston University in Birmingham told T-Online in an interview. So what does the otherwise much criticized country do differently than Germany? And what could the new defense minister Boris Pistorius learn from his British colleague? Anyone who takes a closer look at the military aid provided by Western countries will notice that the British have not only pushed ahead with the main battle tanks. By the end of January, many Western politicians and experts still considered a Russian attack on Ukraine very unlikely. London had already decided to deliver the first arms. On January 17th, Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock said in Kiev that German arms in Ukraine were not an issue and justified this with a German history. A day later, the British Ministry of Defense promised to supply light anti-tank weapons. Germany continued to hesitate and then was ridiculed with the first announcements. Instead of ammunition or vehicles, then Defense Minister Christine Lambrecht promised the Ukrainian soldiers 5,000 helmets and called it a very clear signal. Oh yeah, for her competence. Great Britain also announced deliveries of helmets 2 months later, albeit 84,000. The fact that the British military promised additional aid to Ukraine later than Germany did, however, remained an exception. At the end of November, London promised Kiev 3 Sea King combat helicopters. It was the first Western-style manned aircraft used by Ukrainian soldiers. And now the Challenger main battle tanks follow. But the British government has a major advantage. Unlike in Germany, there is hardly any discussion about the arms deliveries. On the subject of Ukraine, there is a very broad consensus across British party lines and the media, says Ed Turner. According to a YouGov poll in 25 countries last September, more than 70% of Britons were in favor of maintaining economic sanctions against Russia. It was the highest among all nations, while in Germany it was 58%. And 57% of Britons also approved of the delivery of heavy weapons, the second highest figure behind Poland, where there were 65%. In Germany, on the other hand, the situation is different. According to an INSA survey commissioned by a German newspaper at the beginning of January, the German population is rather skeptical about the deliveries of heavy weapons. According to the survey, 50% spoke out against the delivery of main battle tanks, while 38% voted in favor. But for Turner, there are several reasons. In Great Britain, the connection to NATO and the USA has traditionally always been of great importance. This has increased again since Brexit. We hardly have any understanders of Russia like in Germany, says the British expert on German politics. At the time, according to Turner, the British Defense Minister is doing a better job than his German ex-colleague. Unlike Christine Lambrecht, Ben Wallace has been very popular for some time. When Boris Johnson and Liz Truss announced their resignation as Prime Ministers last year, Wallace was considered the top favorite for the successor at number 10 Downing Street, and that in several polls. But Wallace gave up on those applications. He already has an office in which he can make a difference. That's what he let the public know. And he also didn't want to put up with the additional media hype for his family. Considering that the defense minister is also a major focus in Great Britain, Wallace tends to avoid the public. You just have to do your job to be successful. That's what the defense secretary told the Daily Telegraph in March. After all, that's what you get paid for, which means concentrate on your work and nothing else. Oh, he's so right. Someone pointed out to me in an article yesterday that I actually only have 8 Instagram posts, joked the Secretary of Defense. He's a bit like Peter Struck, that was a long time ago a German defense minister. He was absolutely popular among the soldiers and also very down-to-earth and predictable, says Ed Turner, when asked which German politician is most like Wallace. Unlike the former Social Democrat defense minister, Wallace can also demonstrate practical military experience. At 21, he went to the Royal Military Academy in Sandhurst and was then stationed in Germany, Cyprus and Northern Ireland, among other places. However, Turner does not see Wallace as a super minister. He's doing a good job, but he also benefits from the fact that the British people largely support the government's course. In addition, there are also problems in the British military, which then sound not much different from the ones here in Germany. British barracks are in poor condition, just like the procurement system. And that is something I can say about Germany too. And he was in Sandhurst, I was on the German Air Force Academy, but I did have a kind of exchange course with the Royal Air Force Academy in Cranwell. So I know Cranwell very well. I've been there. So there are some connecting points. And if you want to know more about the arms, have a look at my military channel. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.